person refuses to be categorized, the podcast. And today I want to talk to you about my elders. You know, every village has its elders. You know the ones. They're the ones that navigated through long years of this living business. I know older ones, of course, many of them, those who lived but still hadn't learned. But the elders were different. They were the ones who were not skewed, jaded, or ruptured by the thousand moments where the heart stands still, when hope is lost, when days are sodden with grief, when things do not go according to plan. I was blessed. I had three. I have three. My grandmother Marion. My grandmother Marion lived until she was 97. She still lived by herself up until the age of 92 in the old wooden cottage, and then in a sweet set of flats where elders circled to create ornate gardens and peer their head into each other's doors, as is the way of the small town she lived in and that I was born in. Most of them were cousins. My grandmother outlived her two lovers, her two sons, and one grandson. Up until the age of 95, she still worked 2 days a week in the boutique, an op shop. She dressed better than I did. She wore pearls and high heels and tight-fitting, dipping bright blue dresses. She had a collection of retro white-rimmed sunglasses. She was uncannily intuitive, knowing before anyone else in the family, including the subject, who is falling in love, who fell out, and who needs to be told that they're beautiful today. The second elder was her sister Lucy. Lucy had deep red hair and the innocence of a fairy. She fell in love with her soulmate when she was still young. He was older, and though I don't remember him, his kindness is spoken about in glowing whispers. My mother likes to tell a story about someone complimenting Fred on his pink shirt. In return, he took it off and gave it to them. I tell you this about Fred because it tells you about Lucy too. Fred was the gentle man who made his life's work to take care of and love the red-haired, kind-hearted fairy girl who chose him. Lucy had Alzheimer's disease, and though she didn't remember anyone's names by the end, it mattered not. She loved them just the same. She knew that you were good, and she knew that you were family, because everyone is. And the little old lady who lived down the road when I grew up. I knew her, as did most of our town, simply as Nan. Nan lived until she was 102 years old, the eldest of the elders. Nan's eyes were the loveliest of blue, and she liked to ask intensive questions about computers and the internet, so she could understand this funny online goddess job thing that I do. I remember when I was 6, Nan and Pop left on a holiday. She returned without him by her side, a heart attack having taken her love. I remember the neighbourhood's children being gathered up to meet her on the bus, each of us holding a rose for her. She got off the bus and she cried, and she held us all, and then she introduced us to the Swiss girl that she'd made dear friends with on the bus, and who she'd invited to live with her for a while. And she did, and that's how my Nan was, a woman with an open heart, who looks to love wherever she could. Three women that lived long, deep, intensive lives. They lost parents, siblings, loves, children, grandchildren. They lived stories untold of miscarriages, abortions, poverty, pain, infidelity. My grandmother told me she once spent the night in prison with her family. Because it was Christmas Eve, they were visiting the city, there were no hotel rooms available and they had no money. So the police took them in and let them stay the night with 2 young children. There were breakdowns and suicides, alcoholism, watching children waste away for years from cancer. They lived in tents. They'd been beaten. They'd lived through the bombing of London. They'd lived through 2 world wars. There had been the deepest of depressions. And yet, those women, they still glowed. They were still happy. They had a deep and ferocious faith that people are good. They believed anything can be solved with the salve of love. The years did not torn them asunder. It widened them and smoothed them like a river smooths a rock. They glistened. They are wells of compassion, of wisdom, and of laughter. They had a secret. I know other stories and other older ones, those whose tapestry have warped from the threads of living, have torn and frayed and tangled, those who hadn't become beacons for their villages, those who were hurt more than they healed. The years don't always mend and soften and deepen a person. Sometimes I wonder what separates the elders from the olders. And so I listened, and I see. I remember driving with the elders. Without fail, on the drive to the farm, my great-aunt Lucy the fairy coos. Oh, those mountains! Look at those mountains! I've never seen anything like them. The beauty! My grandmother is more pragmatic. Look at this road, it's so wide and smooth. Such a good road to travel on. She turns to me and says, Leonie, you're a good mum. You look beautiful today. Star is the most beautiful baby. Isn't she the most lovely thing you've ever seen? And your dad, he's an old bushy, but he's got a good heart, and gosh, he loves you children. And my Nan, ever the heart, says about each and every day we have together. Well, that was just the most wonderful day possible. I can't imagine a better day. And on and on and on these women speak, singing the praises of every little thing and every little person that crosses their path. Everywhere there are blessings, there are miracles. There's a universe tending to our million needs for air, comfort, love, support, good roads, kind hearts, tender gatherings, and delicious mountains. And they are the sentinels watching for them, praising them, delighting in them, alerting us all to them. This is the secret of the elders. As life's cyclones and storms and tornadoes tear trees and branches from limb, as earthquakes shatter and quake, as tsunamis wash and swallow, these women, they turned their faces to their son and they say, this life is good. Just look at that beautiful sun. May I listen, may I learn, and may I know.